Hey there, YouTubers. Here I am in my downstairs office. The lighting is maybe not quite as good. Let's turn off the sound here. I am paying attention, of course, to everything going on here. That would be going without saying. And I'm still finding YouTube a useful source of all kinds of interesting angles on issues. You know, individuals who just take it into their heads to do. I'm taking you to my history here, but it's being slow. I've got a lot of stuff running, and I'm running, I guess, what you could say the party line, if you want to sound a little bit cynical, but not too. You know, what do I think about everything? Well, I haven't really changed my tune. I'm still pushing something I call GST, which is short for General Systems Theory. And yeah, it challenges economics as commonly taught and has alternative, I would say, heuristics. And this has been on the web since the 80s, or not that, sorry, 90s, I guess. Well, here you go 2000s, 98, GST 101. And this stuff, as I'm showing you right here, it's at grunch.net, but it's HTTP, which some browsers don't even want to show you anymore. And it's also somewhat archaeological. Like what I just jumped to is an old, what was this? Geodesic at the University of Buffalo. You know, that incarnation of the list fell away. And I've sort of curated, as they say, this entire website for tourism, right? Come on through and see what was going on with me in those days. And still, I consider, like, I wouldn't consider this irrelevant now just because years have gone by. I wanted to say, in the academic world, I've got Wordle working well. Field Structure Institute continues to be a fun labyrinth. Um, okay, finally here. Okay, scrolling through. I think the opposition party is in the U.S. That is in the, you can call it the U.S. In theatrical terms. I'm not opposed to that. I make these caveats because if you follow this channel, you know that I have a certain skepticism about whether the United States made it past the Reagan era. It's something else now. It's a new thing. And Fuller tries to describe it in Grunch of Giants, where we're heading, what's shaping up. Like when Facebook and Twitter can kick a president off the platforms, their platforms, and RT can be shut down, Apple can just drop. Like nation states do seem to be now at the mercy of supranational organizations. We call them corporations today. But they're also known as pseudo-humans or corporate persons. In the eyes of legalese, they have the power of people, but really of greater than people because they're eternal. The way they're financially structured and so on, they're not like any human. And they don't need to have a conscience or anything like that because their job is to make money. So they're a robot AI human. This is not a new idea. This has been in the law for a long time. So yeah, we've been doing Fermat pseudoprimes, all the 8th grade stuff that you would hope to find in a very up-to-date, I would say in that sense elite, private school or public school. Now it so happens that I'm doing this in a private school, but I'm making it available as much as possible on GitHub and to the public schools, to the teachers out there who have any interest in this kind of education reform. And there was a math forum sort of devoted to education reform where we had a lot of public debate, and that kind of got shut down. And yes, I come from the Bucky Fuller end of things, which is a little bit obscure and esoteric, but still part of American history, as I have been showing you over the YouTubes that have gone by. Don't feel like you have to just watch my recent YouTubes. Go way back, watch old ones. They're about things that don't change much, like Ezra Pound, people in the past. In other words, it's a lot of historical content. So, regardless of the fast pace of change today, I can still talk about Emerson, Thoreau, Unitarians, Unity Church, New Thought, Quakers. The kind of church history goes on here, but I'm not exclusively interested in Christianity, of course. It's just I wear this hat sometimes to kind of anchor me as a character in your mind as much as in mine. Like with the blizzard of characters out there, how are we going to remember anything and tell ourselves apart? Well, I'll be like the pensive cowboy slash Quaker um, into Buckminster Fuller, who is, I would say, into pacifism. Like he worked in the war world and he was a Cold Warrior. And I would say a pacifist maybe is philosophically, ideologically not going to say that they engage in psychological warfare because that's got a sound of war in it. But I do enjoy studying. Like Scott Ritter was in my channel quite a bit in terms of interviews of him. Like where I've been showing you my history, you'll see Scott go by here quite a few times, but okay, can't find him right now. Abby Martin changed her look a bit. She always does. Okay. I change my look too. My haircut changes. I try to stay within certain parameters, both in terms of what I talk about, disclose some stuff, and what my mission is. Why do I talk about this stuff? Mainly, you could say I'm showing a multidisciplinary high school. I'm like the principal of a boarding school, kind of experimental. We field test interesting community equipment of tomorrow, dwelling machines, not the least of which are what we test. But, think of us as kind of like, um, I wasn't going to, well, scouting a little bit like that, right? You're outdoors a lot and you're doing stuff with equipment. But Quaker does not connote that you're learning the art of taking the lives of other humans. That's not a course that we offer. You might get that somewhere else. But that doesn't mean we don't get into ballistics or energy or even volatility. Explosives aren't synonymous with doing the war training, right? So we're into physics, and we're far out in remote areas sometimes. So our kind of an ideal environment for certain kinds of physics that might involve explosives. But again, I'm not thinking in terms of training for war here. I'm thinking of learning about the principles of nature, up close with actual hands-on stuff. Because sometimes a lot of this computer material that I do on Zoom and so on is all well and good, but it feels kind of dry, kind of like, okay, I just found out about the Chinese hypothesis. It's a little bit denigrating, kind of like Chinese fire drill in a way. I'm not going to call it racist or anything. I think it's fine. I think it's innocent. But this guy, this mathematician, can be forgiven for thinking that Fermat's primality test using base 2 was going to give him the primes. It was like panning for gold. When you find that much gold in your pan, you think you've got the magic pan. Okay, turns out just go a little bit higher, 341, and you pass their Fermat test, and you're not a prime, you're a composite. So, like what I'm showing my kids here is kind of how you grow into a topic. In other words, find the main people, find the proper names, find something about their history, weave some biographies together just to get started. While I'm finishing this up, I'm going to run this whole thing. Do I have bugs in this? I got to teach this tonight. So what you're watching me do is what I call teacher prep. I'm kind of proud that I think I've got Wordle working now. In other words, I want to be able to give a random answer word and a random guess word and have the guesses get closer and closer to the answer and finally get there. Um, so I'm going to try to use Python at once in two places. In the foreground, I'm having it show my Wordle code in action. In the background, I'm rerunning a Jupyter Notebook. And this is just on a, and I'm doing Camtasia, and so and this is an older Mac Pro with the disk almost full. So this is going to be a little bit taxing, a little bit slow, and you might be thinking, gosh, she has a slow computer. And yeah, when I work it this hard, everything becomes as slow as molasses. There you see, it's working pretty well now. It started with boils as a guess against hold. That's the same answer every time. Column 1 is the constant answer, and column 2 is as I approach it, and column 3 are the kind of hints you would get from a Wordle type program, and then over on the left side is source code. And the only reason I had a lot of confidence that I could get this in a reasonable amount of time was I did it a long time ago, I think in APL, probably when I first got to Princeton as an undergrad, probably because the game Mastermind, right, had come out and already was about this kind of stuff. So I didn't have to wait till Wordle became the craze just recently, right? This XKCD cartoon kind of sums it up. So far, it looks like this whole page is working smoothly. I just wanted to end on a cartoon. If it will even let me change tabs. Hello, hello, computer.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, there's going to be a cartoon here showing up. So the point I'm trying to get across is the material I'm here scrolling through and showing you is identically material I'm using with online classes and in-person class uh, exactly around the same time. So, and there's enough Bucky stuff sort of between the lines and connected all the way through that I feel like I can go on my subculture lists and talk to my peers and say, hey, getting all this stuff like American philosophy and futurism into an ordinary American high school, it's not rocket science. Or if it is, they need to learn a little rocket science. So I'm showing how it's done and how it could have always been done. It's like I'm just a AA battery guy, so I'm slowly chipping away and making more and more progress. But think of how useful it might have been to have been where I'm getting now 10 years ago with a little bit more horsepower, you could say. In other words, I think we pay a price for letting me have all the fun because I'm pretty finite. Not that we're not, I think we're a bigger team than me, but it feels like, gosh, this is as interesting as a lot of math I've seen that gets a lot more attention. I'm talking about quad rays, whole number volumes, tetravolumes, IVM versus XYZ, the whole thing. What's in this channel? All right, didn't talk about modules at all. We've been talking, Zubek and I, at length on previous videos about modules. Didn't get into that. Got into other stuff. GST in particular. I hope you can find your way to this sometime and actually read it. If it's not on the web anymore, grunch.net, hopefully backed up somewhere, like right here. Stop it and read it. And these are pretty good links, some of them, right? So maybe you'll even find some of those. All right, talk to you later.